This story is titled, After My Uncle Died, the Family Called a Meeting. I thought it was about the will. Instead, they handed me a binder of debts and said, You owe this now. He raised you. This is your responsibility. I laughed. My aunt slammed the table and said, Don't you dare walk out. We gave you a life. I just smiled, pushed the binder back and said, I'll give you something better. 3 days later, they got letters. They couldn't ignore. Now they're crying in voicemails. Please, just tell us it's not real. When my uncle passed, I honestly expected grief, maybe a few awkward silences, and some cheap catered food at the wake. Instead, I got blindsided. The kind of blindsided that makes you question everything you thought you understood about family, loyalty, and what it means to owe someone. Uncle Ray died last Thursday. Heart attack in his sleep, quiet, sudden. He was 67, no kids of his own, never married, but he basically raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 11. I moved into his house that night and stayed until college. He taught me how to ride a bike, balance a checkbook, and sharpen a blade without losing a finger. He wasn't perfect, but he was mine. So when my cousin Janine texted me about a family meeting 3 days after the funeral, I figured it was about the will. Maybe some logistics, some estate stuff. I even wore a decent shirt. Thought they'd want me to say a few words. Instead, they sat me down, closed the living room door, and slid a binder across the table like we were in some low-budget mafia movie. Inside were debt statements, pages and pages of them, credit cards, personal loans, unpaid hospital bills, all in Uncle Ray's name, totaling over $128,000. We all agreed, my Aunt Margie said, not meeting my eyes. You were his dependent for a long time. He raised you. This is your responsibility now. I actually laughed, like an out-loud, what the hell is happening laugh. I thought it was a joke, until my Uncle Don slammed the coffee table hard enough that the ceramic candy dish jumped. Don't you dare walk out, Aunt Margie hissed. We gave you a life. I just stared at them, at these people who had barely shown up while Uncle Ray was alive, at Janine, who once told me she didn't do funerals, but had shown up to this one in full glam and a fascinator, at Uncle Don, who borrowed $5,000 from Ray back in 2009 and never paid him back. And now they were looking at me like I owed them something? I smiled, pushed the binder back across the table. I'll give you something better. That was 3 days ago. They didn't ask what I meant. Probably assumed it was a threat I couldn't afford to make. But I walked out of that house with a calm I hadn't felt in years. Because the truth is, I knew something they didn't. Uncle Ray didn't just raise me, he trusted me. And right before he died, he handed me a key to a lockbox I hadn't opened yet. What was in it changed everything. When my uncle died, I expected grief, maybe a fight over who got the tools in his shed. What I didn't expect was to be called into a living room like a damn intervention and handed a 3-ring binder stuffed with someone else's bad decisions. Uncle Ray passed last Thursday. Heart attack. Peaceful, they said. He was 67 and stubborn as ever. Still using the same lawnmower he bought in 1995. No wife, no kids, just me. Technically, I'm his nephew, but he raised me after my parents died in a highway pileup when I was 11. Took me in, no questions asked, gave me a room, hot meals, even taught me how to fix a carburetor and do my own taxes before I hit puberty. We didn't do hugs or heart-to-hearts, but he showed up. Every time. So when Aunt Margie texted about a family meeting, I figured we were divvying up his stuff. Maybe talking funeral costs. I put on a decent shirt and showed up at her house out of respect. Big mistake. There were 5 of them. Aunt Margie, Uncle Don, cousin Janine, Janine's husband Mark, and my other cousin Craig, who's always mysteriously between jobs. I barely got in the door before they ushered me to the dining table and slid that binder across like it was a contract. Ray left behind a lot, Margie said, and we think it's time you step up. I flipped it open. Bills. Pages of them. Credit cards, medical debt, some old loan co-signed by someone named A. Mitchell I'd never even heard of. Total owed $128,442 and change. I looked up, confused. Okay, but why are you showing me this? Uncle Don leaned in. Because he raised you. You were like a son to him. That means something. My laugh wasn't polite. It was one of those bitter little chokes that slips out when your body can't decide whether to be amused or offended. You're serious? We're not asking, Margie snapped. We gave you a life. Ray sacrificed for you. This is your turn. It was like they were rehearsing from a script, some lifetime drama where I suddenly realize I'm the morally obligated heir to a pile of debt and a family's delusion. I just shook my head. You want me to pay off $128,000 in debt because I slept in his spare room from age 11 to 18? Craig muttered something about entitlement under his breath. That's rich coming from a guy who once tried to sell his dad's power tools for weed money. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just pushed the binder back and stood up. I'll give you something better, I said. Not loud, just enough for the room to go quiet. Then I walked out. They didn't follow. Probably thought I'd cool off and come back with a checkbook. They don't know what's coming. The first voicemail came the next morning. Aunt Margie. Voice like she was talking through a clenched jaw. We didn't mean to upset you. Emotions were high. But this isn't something you can just walk away from. I didn't respond. I went to work like it was any other Friday. Spent 8 hours fixing busted HVAC systems for people who say things like, "my guy," when they hand you a bottled water. Came home sore, threw my boots by the door, and listened to 5 more voicemails, each one a little more desperate than the last. By Saturday, the tone had changed. Don's message was just straight-up venom. You think you're too good for this family? Ray gave you everything. The least you could do is help clean up his mess. I deleted that one before it finished. Here's the thing nobody in that living room seems to understand. Uncle Ray didn't leave me anything. No house, no car, no life-changing surprise in the attic. What he gave me was something a little harder to quantify. A way out. He never said it out loud, but I know he saw what this family was. And he made damn sure I didn't turn out like them. They keep acting like I'm the ungrateful one. Like I should feel indebted because I got a roof and some secondhand clothes after my parents died. But they weren't there. They didn't see the nights Ray came home from the mill too tired to talk but still fixed my bike or showed me how to budget my allowance. They didn't see how he worked overtime so I could go on the 8th grade trip to DC, while Margie told Janine she was too delicate to ride buses with poor kids. They call him irresponsible now because of his debt. But you know what I found out after I left Margie's house? Every single one of those medical bills was from the last 4 years. Chemotherapy, meds, ambulance rides, appointments out of state when the VA dragged its feet. He never told me how bad it had gotten, never asked me for a dime. And now these people want to dump it on me like it's a family heirloom? Nah. So while they were calling and texting and probably gossiping to their church friends about how Ray's boy turned out selfish, I was writing letters, actual letters, certified mail, tracked, signed for, sent them to each one of them, Margie, Dawn, Janine, even Mark and Craig. Each envelope had the same thing inside, a formal statement, typed and signed, declining responsibility for Ray's debts and reminding them that unless I'd co-signed anything, which I hadn't, I was legally not liable. I included copies of the relevant state statutes, highlighted, just in case they needed a reading comprehension refresher. And yeah, I CC'd a lawyer, because I knew they'd try something. They got the letters yesterday. Today, my phone's blowing up. Not with anger. Now they're crying. Sunday morning, 6:12 a.m. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing nonstop like it was possessed. 15 missed calls, 11 voicemails, 5 texts that all started with some version of, "Please, we didn't know it was that serious." They'd gotten the letters. I poured my coffee slow, real slow, like I had all the time in the world. Because I did. I wasn't the one buried under a mountain of debt and a crumbling narrative. They were. Margie's voicemail was first. Her voice was shaking, all sugar and desperation. "We didn't mean to pressure you, sweetheart. It's just, everything's so overwhelming right now. Maybe we got carried away. We love you. Ray loved you. Maybe we could talk." Talk. Now they wanted to talk. When they thought I'd be too spineless to push back, I was just the kid they could dump problems on like it was still 2003 and I didn't know better. But I've had a long time to grow a spine. And watching someone die slowly while his own siblings visited once a year will do that to you. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to know, was that Uncle Ray had tried to reach out to them near the end. He told me once during one of his good days that he'd tried calling Margie when the doctor used the word terminal. Said she didn't answer. Texted her too. Never got a reply. "She's busy," he'd said. "She's got her own life." That's what I kept hearing in my head as I listened to their messages now. Dawn's was the worst. Sobbing. I'd never heard that man cry in my life. Hell, when his own mother died, he gave a eulogy that sounded like a PowerPoint presentation. Now he was choking on the words. "Please tell me you didn't. Please just tell me it's not real." He didn't say what it was. None of them did. But I knew exactly what they meant, because I didn't just send them letters saying I wouldn't pay Ray's debts. That would have been enough. But I wanted something more. Something Ray deserved. So I included another detail in each envelope, a short statement letting them know I had filed an inquiry into fraudulent use of Ray's identity in the final months of his life, because someone had opened a credit card under his name last fall, after his first major surgery when he was barely coherent. Someone had taken out payday loans using his social security number. I'd found the paperwork buried in his old desk, signed with handwriting that didn't match his. I'd been sitting on that for weeks. Until now, each family member got a personalized heads up letting them know that I'd submitted all documentation to the state fraud department and Ray's bank. If none of them did it, no problem. They've got nothing to worry about. If one of them did, well, that's between them and the investigator I gave my statement to. Let the crying begin. By Monday, I was getting texts from cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Suddenly everyone wanted to catch up, to check in, to see how I was holding up. The group chat, which had been a digital ghost town since Uncle Ray's funeral, lit up like a Christmas tree. Janine even dropped a crying emoji in one of her messages, like that was going to make up for everything. What they were really doing was sniffing around, trying to figure out exactly what I knew and how much of it could burn them. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I spent the day reviewing everything again. The documents I found in Ray's desk, the bank statements, the postmarked envelopes from lenders he never used. He'd kept everything, even in the haze of treatment and painkillers. Some part of him must have known something was wrong. He'd left a paper trail. Sloppy, disorganized, but real. And when I went through the transaction history on his accounts, one name popped up again and again. C. Bellows. Craig? Of course it was Craig. It always starts with a family member who just needs a little help. The one who bounces between couches like it's a lifestyle. Ray had co-signed something for him years ago that I knew. But these new charges, they weren't accidental. They were calculated. Spread across different cards, timed around Ray's chemo treatments, slipped in when no one was paying attention. Because who's going to notice when you're too sick to remember what day it is? I'd already handed the evidence off to the fraud department, but I made one more copy. For myself, just in case. By Tuesday, the whole family knew. That's when the voicemails changed. Craig's a good kid, he's just made some poor choices, Margie pleaded. Maybe we don't need to involve the authorities. Maybe there's another way. Another way. Translation. Sweep it under the rug, like always. I started getting passive-aggressive messages from Janine about how I was destroying the family. And Ray would be ashamed if he saw me now. That one made me laugh out loud. Ashamed? Of me? The man who once told me never to let blood be an excuse for abuse? Who pulled me out of that god-awful foster placement and taught me how to fight my own battles without throwing punches? He wouldn't be ashamed. He'd be proud. Because this family, these people, didn't just abandon him when he got sick. They fed off him, took what they wanted, and left him to die drowning in debt and regret. And now that someone's shining a light on it, suddenly I'm the problem? Not a chance. I'm not the kid in the back room anymore, staying quiet while the adults talk. I'm the one flipping the table. And they're just starting to realize it. Wednesday morning, Janine posted one of those vague Facebook updates people drop when they want attention without revealing the whole train wreck. Some people will betray family for clout, praying for peace in these difficult times. Right on cue, a parade of nosy high school acquaintances commented with, "What happened?" and "You okay, babe?" Like we were in a high school breakup saga instead of a slow-motion family implosion. I didn't respond. I just took a screenshot and filed it under petty crimes against logic, because while they were busy crafting public narratives about betrayal and hardship, I was talking to Uncle Ray's bank. The fraud investigator called me back that morning. Polite voice, very matter-of-fact. Said the claims were officially being escalated. There are clear signs of identity misuse. We're pulling security footage from the branches where the withdrawals happened, she said. And some of the names involved are already on our internal watch list. Internal watch list. Turns out Craig had done this before. Not just to Ray. The investigator didn't give me details, confidentiality and all that, but her tone changed when I told her Ray had passed. I could tell it hit her differently when she realized the victim wasn't just vulnerable. He was gone. By noon, Margie called me directly. No voicemail this time. Just straight to voice, 5 times in a row. I finally picked up on the 6th, mostly because I was tired of watching the name flash across my screen like a mosquito that wouldn't die. "I just want to talk," she said. Her voice was all honey and tremble now, the same voice she used when she wanted Ray to co-sign things. She started going on about how families make mistakes, and blood is thicker than paperwork, and you don't want this to ruin your future too. That last one made me pause. My future? What do you mean by that? I asked. She hesitated just long enough to confirm everything I suspected. Look, I know people, and if this goes legal, if you're seen as the one stirring it up, it won't look good. For you, for your job. You know how fast things spread. There it was. The threat disguised as concern. Classic Margie. "I'm not worried," I said. Because unlike Craig, I didn't steal from a dying man. And I hung up. Haven't heard from her since. But Janine? She's doubling down. I got an email later that day from an account she must have created just to send it. A single line. "We know what you did. This isn't over." That made me laugh. Because they still don't get it. I didn't do anything. I just stopped covering for them. And the next step? That's when things go public. They thought letters were bad? Wait till the full audit hits the lawyer's desk. Thursday morning, my lawyer called. Not her assistant. Her. She never calls unless it's something serious. Said she got a response from one of the agencies we filed with. Apparently, someone on the receiving end of those letters I sent decided to try and get ahead of the situation. Made a formal request to negotiate a private resolution. Didn't name themselves. Just said they represented concerned family members. I didn't need a name. I knew exactly who it was. That desperation had Craig's fingerprints all over it. The man once tried to sell a stolen Xbox to a pawn shop while his own name was engraved on the controller. Subtlety has never been his strength. "I recommend we don't respond," my lawyer said. "This reads like panic, Let it work in our favor. I agreed. By lunch, the real fallout started. Someone must have talked because the local paper ran a short piece in the crime blotter. Ongoing investigation into alleged identity fraud involving deceased veteran. No names yet, just enough detail to get the town buzzing. Ray's face didn't even appear in the article, but everyone who knew us would put it together. Small town logic. If you sneeze too loud, the corner diner knows before you finish wiping your nose. An hour later, I got a voicemail from Janine. Not angry, not crying, screaming. You don't know what you've done. I could lose everything. Craig is spiraling, and Aunt Margie is sick with stress. I hope you're happy. You're tearing this family apart over what? Some medical bills and a dead man? She didn't even say his name. Not once. I saved the message. Then, for the first time, I posted something. Nothing dramatic. Just a simple photo of me and Uncle Ray from the 4th of July 5 years ago. He was holding a beer, laughing. I captioned it, he deserved better. No hashtags, no names, just truth. Within an hour, it had over 300 comments. Friends, co-workers, even people from Ray's old VFW hall chiming in, sharing stories, offering support. One woman messaged me privately to say Ray once paid for her son's textbooks without asking for a penny back. Another said he'd fixed her porch for free after her husband died. They remembered him the way I did. Not perfect, not rich, but good. Margie and her crew? Silent, probably regrouping or lawyering up. Either way, I didn't care. The narrative had shifted. The spotlight wasn't on me anymore. It was on them. And in the back of my mind, I could hear Ray's gravel-rough voice saying something he used to mutter when fixing an engine. Sometimes you gotta flush the whole system before anything runs clean. Guess we're flushing now. Friday morning started with a text from Craig. Just one word, please. I didn't answer. What was there to say? He'd spent years taking from everyone around him like the world owed him a tab he'd never have to settle. Uncle Ray forgave him. Over and over. I didn't. Around noon, I noticed Janine had nuked her Facebook account. Not deactivated, deleted. Every family photo, every proud mama post, every brag about her husband's consulting business that didn't seem to actually consult anything. Gone. Clean slate. Margie's page was still up but locked down. She'd changed her profile picture to a generic rose and removed her last name. Like that would erase anything. Like Google doesn't remember. That evening, I came home to a letter taped to my door. Actual paper. Folded in thirds. Handwritten. I almost didn't read it. I stood there for a long time just staring at it. Keys still in my hand. But curiosity got the better of me. It was from Don. Uncle Don. The guy who used to call me Sport before asking to borrow money he never paid back. His handwriting was shaky. He started the letter like it was an apology, then somehow made it about himself by paragraph 2. He said the family was falling apart, said he wished we'd all handled things differently, said he never meant for this to happen, but that I'd gone too far. And then, this line, Ray would have wanted peace. He wouldn't want to be the reason for this war. That sentence pissed me off more than anything else they'd done, because Ray didn't start the war. They did. They started it when they used him, ignored him, abandoned him, when he was sick and needed help and none of them showed, when they took his kindness and squeezed it dry. And now that the lights were on and the roaches were scattering, suddenly I'm the one who went too far? That night I sat on my couch, drinking the last of Ray's favorite whiskey. He kept a bottle of Evan Williams in the back of the pantry for emergencies. I guess this counted. I thought about the first time he let me drive his truck. I was 16, terrified of scraping the paint. He just said, if something breaks, we fix it. But you're driving, because you've got to learn. And that was Ray. He didn't coddle. He didn't preach. He just handed you the keys and expected you to figure it out. Trusted you. And that trust, it was why I did this. Not to destroy anyone, not even Craig, but to fix what I could, and to finally drive. Because Ray raised me to be better than them. And I am. Saturday morning was quiet. No calls, no texts. The silence felt suspicious, like the calm before a storm, or the moment someone realizes they've already lost and there's nothing left to scream about. I made coffee the same way Ray used to. Black, 2 sugars, no talking until the second cup. Then I opened my laptop and logged into the email I'd created just for this. The one connected to a file folder full of scanned documents, time-stamped voicemails, signed witness statements from the bank, and even a few grainy but clear security camera stills that showed Craig walking into a branch with Ray's ID 2 months before he died. I drafted one last message. To the probate lawyer, to Ray's bank, to the fraud investigator, and, most importantly, to the rest of the family. Be CC'd, because I knew what I was doing. The email subject line was simple. For the record, this ends now. Inside was a full breakdown of every piece of evidence. No emotion, just facts. Dates, signatures, transaction records. A clear, thorough map showing exactly how Ray's identity had been abused, how the debts stacked up, and who had something to gain. The final attachment was a notarized statement I submitted that morning to the county clerk's office. It declared my legal intent to pursue full accountability for financial fraud against my uncle's estate. Not to claim assets, but to clear his name. That line mattered. Because Ray didn't deserve to be remembered as a man who died with bills he couldn't pay. He deserved to be remembered as the guy who raised a scared 11-year-old into a man who didn't flinch when it was time to do the hard thing. I hit send. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up. It was a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I played it, Margie was sobbing. "I don't know what you told them, but they're calling us. We're getting letters. There's an audit starting next week. Jesus, just tell us it's not real. Please, please." Then silence. Later that afternoon, I went to the cemetery, brought that half-empty bottle of Evan Williams, sat beside Ray's headstone for a while. It's a modest plot, nothing fancy, just his name, 2 dates, and the words, "He showed up." That's what I asked them to put there, because that's what he did. I poured a little of the whiskey into the grass, took a sip, and leaned back against the stone. "They got the message," I said out loud, to nobody and to Ray at the same time. I didn't stay long, just long enough to say goodbye the way I should have when they buried him in that rushed little funeral with weak coffee and even weaker tears. The storm is theirs now. I've got clear skies ahead. Update 1. First off, I didn't expect that post to blow up the way it did. I figured maybe a few dozen people would read it. Maybe someone would say, "Good for you," and I'd move on. Instead, I woke up to hundreds of messages, dozens of DMs, and a wall of people basically saying, "Hell yes, finally someone did it right. So, thank you. Sincerely." Now, on to what's happened since I hit send on that last email. The fallout has been intense. Apparently, the bank and state agency didn't just sit on their hands. Once the paper trail came together and the video footage hit their inbox, things escalated fast. Faster than I thought possible, honestly. I got a call from the fraud investigator 2 days later. She couldn't give me full details because of the open case, but she said, "Let's just say we're no longer in the inquiry phase. We've moved into enforcement." That same day, Craig's employer, yeah, turns out he had a job after all, let him go pending investigation. And by job, I mean a sketchy contract gig his girlfriend's uncle handed him under the table, which might have been part of the problem, because I heard through the grapevine that said, "Uncle got interviewed by someone in a blazer and a badge." Whoops. As for the family, the group chat is dead, like corpse cold dead. Last I heard, Don tried to organize some kind of family-only mediation, which is rich coming from the guy who once tried to sue a neighbor over a rake. Margie hasn't called since her voicemail meltdown, but she did send me a Facebook message that just said, "You're punishing the innocent." I didn't reply, because if they were innocent, they wouldn't be scrambling. The only person who's reached out with anything real was Janine's husband, Mark. He messaged me privately. I didn't know. I just did what Janine told me. I believe him. He always looked like he was being held hostage at family dinners anyway. Meanwhile, the probate lawyer handling Ray's estate called to let me know that my statement and documentation will be included in the official case file. His exact words, "You've done more for this man's dignity than anyone else in his life." I'm not crying. You are. I haven't decided what comes next. I'm not looking for revenge anymore. Not really. They're digging their own graves now, and honestly, watching them sweat is more satisfying than any scorched earth ending I could have scripted. But I will say this. If they thought the story ended with an inbox full of voicemails, they clearly forgot who raised me. Ray taught me to finish what I start.